It's a day Sal DiMasi and his wife Debbie have been fighting for years. This morning, Judge Mark Wolf ordered the 71-year-old former House Speaker to be freed from a North Carolina federal prison next Tuesday on compassionate early release due to his age and serious medical condition. DiMasi has served 5 of his 8-year sentence after he was found guilty in 2011 of taking more than $65,000 in kickbacks for helping a local business win major state contracts. While in prison, DiMasi developed cancer in several parts of his body and deteriorated to the point he was only able to eat pureed food because his throat was so constricted from the treatment, which was the main factor cited in Judge Wolf's 69-page ruling this morning. Initially, Wolf raised questions whether DiMasi's connections meant DiMasi received special treatment because of who he and some of his prominent supporters were. But this morning, Wolf concluded DiMasi did meet the criteria and should be released early, a decision local political leaders are backing.
I'm very, very pleased to see this happen.
Well, obviously, Judge Wolf had a lot to do with that case in the first place. If he believes at this point that that's the right thing to do and the prosecutors supported it, then, I think, I don't have a problem with it. Let's put it that way.
I'm joined now by the former Speaker's wife, Debbie DiMasi. Debbie, good to see you. First time you smiled in months on the show. And former federal judge, Nancy Gertner, Judge, it's good to see you. When did you first hear this, Debbie?
This morning.
And when did your husband how did your husband hear this?
I sent him an email, and I just heard back from him. It takes about 3 hours to go through, and he's been very anxious and with, the waiting, so he's not really checking his emails. So he waited a while to check it and checked it this afternoon and called me.
What was that conversation like?
It was unbelievable.
What did he say to you? What did you say to him?
He was absolutely stunned. He said, "Is that email? Are you serious, honey? Are you really? Is it true?"
What did your email to him say?
Hi, my honey. Coming down to pick you up on November 22nd and bring you home. Call me.
That's all it said?
Yeah.
When was the last time you saw him, Debbie?
July.
Yeah. Judge Gertner, from my reading of this thing and from following the hearings and that sort of stuff, it seems your former colleague, actually, Judge Wolf, had a couple of concerns. Starting in 2013, you didn't have to be terminally ill anymore. You needed a serious medical condition. Right. Secondly, he voiced concerns that the former Speaker not get a special deal because of those connections. And as I said a minute ago, the judge said he met both those criteria. But I want to talk to you about the special deal issue that he said Speaker DiMasi did not get.
Right.
A couple of things. Virtually no one is granted compassionate release. The numbers are embarrassingly low. But he was here. Doesn't that in and of itself provide some evidence that because he was Sal DiMasi, he got special consideration?
Two answers to that. One is that's all changing. And one of the things that Judge Wolf says, which is absolutely right, is that the Bureau of Prisons was under excruciating criticism from all corners to change. And that what he says in his decision is that this will be the sort of template going forward, the paradigm for dealing with release going forward. The other thing is, I was involved in advising Sal about the various appeals. It was 15 months of multiple petitions, denied, ridiculous procedures. So the notion this is special treatment was absurd.
Well, but one more thing about that, though. From what I read in his decision, and I read it quickly before he came on the air, the ordinary course of proceeding is the Bureau of Prisons makes a decision, then the U.S. Attorney has to buy in. You all approached it in the opposite direction.
No,
you went to Carmen Ortiz, did you not?
We did it at the same time. We did the BOP initially. And then we were getting a runaround. Again, I can't tell you it would be, I'm sorry, turn you down because you're not at death's door. Well, that was not the standard. Or turn you down and then you want to appeal, but they wouldn't give him the right form. We were getting a runaround. And so essentially we went to Carmen Ortiz for help in sorting out the procedure. I'm not persuaded that this hasn't happened before. That is to say that the U.S. Attorney hasn't, gone to the Bureau of Prisons and say, follow your own rules.
I see. One last thing on this special deal, or lack of special deal, according to the judge, Debbie, if I can. Your testimony before, we're going to talk in a minute about what you're hoping is going to happen at the State House in terms of us joining the vast majority of states that have a comparable law for state prisoners. Here's what you said, part of what you said. I hear the story of the inmate with stage 4 liver cancer dying in pain on a prison floor. The inmate with stage 4 throat cancer who sought help for 6 months before succumbing. The inmate who collapsed and was left to die in a prison yard. None of them got what your husband got this morning. Is that not some evidence that because he was the former speaker and because he knew people in power, that he was able to get something that these people that you cared about
This is the
didn't
time when
get?
you say he had fabulous lawyers.
No, I'm serious. Is that are you convinced also that he didn't get special treatment because of who he was and because some of his supporters?
I mean, yes, he had
Fabulous lawyers. We
yes.
know. We do know. Yes.
I don't know. I don't, because he did not get special treatment. I think of what we went through to get him to be diagnosed with throat cancer, and then he was...
What are you going to go through now? What's going to happen? I mean, he lost his pension. I know he got his contribution. I mean, you're not rolling in dough. What are you two going to do?
You know, I'm someone who... things just happen the way they're supposed to happen, and I can't project out into the future. I've always been that way. If I do, I will panic, and I can't. So things will happen the way they're supposed to, and we'll figure it out.
Can I go back to something you said a minute ago, Judge Gertner? The line I think you were referencing from Judge Wolf's decision, the court hopes that the decision in this case will contribute to the humane administration of, and then he cites the statute, the compassionate release rule, by the Bureau of Prisons in the future. I hope everybody hopes that. I know you hope that. Why do you were a former judge. Would this have had an impact on you? Why should we think that the compassionate treatment of one man is going to change anybody's behavior?
Well, as I said, there was a logjam here, and the logjam began to break when the Sentencing Commission said, Bureau of Prisons, you are not releasing people fully consistent with your authority. The authority said extraordinary and compelling. All the people that Debbie just talked about should have been released. Yes. The logjam began to break. The DOJ testified before the Commission that they agree, that the Department of Justice, right, that they agree that this should change. And I think, and we, to some degree, I mean, my former colleague knew that he was stepping on a stage where what he said could then be followed by future administrators at the BOP, the Bureau of Prisons, future administrators at the Department of Justice, and future judges. He created a precedent.
Let's come back to the state before you go, Debbie DiMasi. Again, you did lobby. I think it was about a year ago in October of last year.
Yes.
Senate passed the bill. It died in the House. I asked the governor a couple of weeks ago, Baker, whether he would support a bill in the state. Here's what Charlie Baker had to say.
This is certainly something that if the legislature is interested in discussing it, we'd be interested in discussing it too. I do think, though, the specifics on this stuff matter. First-degree murderers, what do you think? Sex offenders, what do you think? I mean, there's a bunch of categories here where it would make sense to really debate it and discuss it.
Current Speaker of the House, I played before, praised the decision of the judge, but he didn't let this bill go through. I know you told me outside how you're going to keep fighting for this thing. Are you optimistic that we'll finally join the 45 or 46 other states that apply these kind of criteria to people in state prisons?
I am optimistic.
Are you going to keep fighting for this thing?
Absolutely.
Why?
Because I care so deeply about this, and we're talking about human beings. And they don't deserve to be treated the way they're being treated. And, you know, I mean, you can talk about it from our taxpayer point of view. I'm looking at it as the human being and their families. And, yes, I will continue to fight.
Glad to hear that. Debbie DiMasi, congratulations to you and your husband.
Thank you,
Judge
Jim.
Gertner, it's good to see you. Congratulations to you, too. Appreciate it.